Okay, welcome. Today we're at my home studio and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to put together our first Painting 2 project, which is going to be this optical illusion. It has it's got our shades and our tints as well as our traditional hue. We'll go ahead and talk about the paint mixing to create those in part 2. But for part 1, I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to put this together. Okay, how we're going to go ahead and do that, I'm going to put this to the side. Each and every table should have one of these pattern sheets. And what these pattern sheets are going to do, they're going to help us make sure we line everything up. So when we paint it, I basically took the thinking out of it. But let me go ahead and warn you. It's not going to be 100% perfect on line. That's because when we paint our lines, we're gonna go ahead and outline in black on its own after we're done painting it. So we really didn't have to have 100% perfect pattern. But again, this is exactly what I used, and this is the outcome that I created. So what I did is I went ahead and I didn't want to start at the very bottom. I wanted to start somewhere where it's not touching the bottom. I went ahead and I lined it up at the edge, and I went ahead and you're gonna trace very, very lightly. I'm actually pushing down a little bit harder because I want to make sure you can see my lines. I'm going nice and slow around the shape, making sure I'm holding it down, making all the turns. Again, now I'm going to remove it and you're going to realize, oh no, it doesn't go to the end. That is perfectly fine. What you're going to go ahead and do is then take that same piece of cardboard and you're just going to go ahead and move it. Kind of judge where you think the line would go. Okay, I think my pattern would continue here and here. Perfect. Then using a ruler, I would go back, line up my corner to corner, corner to corner, and there's no corner at that end because that's where I started. Now here's where it's going to go ahead and get a little bit tricky. All right, our next part, we're not going to want to do it exactly the same. We're going to have to kind of move it a little bit. So we want to make sure we line up. See, this is what I'm talking about, where it's not exactly a perfect corner. But I want to go ahead and line it up right where I feel it should fit. We'll start here. Right where I think it should fit. I'll do it half and half. So I'm lining it up, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead, see how my corner touches the corner above it. I'm gonna go ahead and trace. Remember, you're going lightly as you can, and it runs off the page, and that's fine. I'm going, and I'm gonna run into this corner, and then I'm gonna go up to that corner. And again, that's absolutely fine. It'll work its way out when we go to painting. So I'm gonna go back, and I need to put my lines back where they need to go. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure, it's a slow process. To have a project turn out where it's kind of like, wow, that's cool. We wanna make sure we take our time at the very beginning and get our lines in the right spots. See what I'm talking about? That's a little bit off, but that's gonna work out at the end. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue putting this together, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, I'm done finishing tracing my boxes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show you how we create these little squares, because that's part of where the optical illusion comes in. Because right now your project should look something like this, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what yours looks like. And I know, it's because we haven't done the perspective. So here's the part that we're gonna do. We're gonna create the top of the boxes. So that basically means this part right here and the two sides. So we're gonna take our ruler, Don't drop your ruler like I just did. Okay, again, we're gonna take our ruler and we're gonna go ahead and line up to do the perspective part. So I'm gonna line my ruler up so the diagonal line, I'm gonna very lightly, I don't know if you can see that because I super lightly, I'll do it a little darker, trace the line. So I'm gonna go back on this side now, the one across from it, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna super lightly trace the line. I did mine darker so you could see what I was doing. Now I'm going to take my ruler and now I'm going to make sure I'm completely horizontal, up and down, and trace a line. Now let me show you why you want to make sure you're going super duper lightly. So let's go to the one above it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just line it up to where the diagonal, so it's like it matches. And I'm not going lightly. And I have my line in. Go to the other side, line it up. Again, I'm just pushing down regular parts, and now you have this overlap, which you're going to need to erase. If you would have go ahead and draw that super lightly, you wouldn't have to worry about erasing so much. So I just say go super duper lightly until you get it right, so you don't have to do the erasing. So again, okay, so I lined up, drew my line, lined up, drew my line. It's about the halfway point. Now I'm going to use my ruler, going directly vertical. You might want to use your paper as a guide. If you have your paper crooked, like I always have my paper crooked, but I look at the top of my ruler and make sure the top of my ruler is touching the top of the paper. So that way I know I am lined up on key. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. Boom. Done. Two boxes are created. So I'm going to scoot down a little bit farther. I'm going to do the next one. Line it up. Top of my line. Again, super lightly to about the halfway point. Line it up again. Super lightly to about the halfway point. If you have to go over a little more, you can. Then I'm going to make sure my ruler is completely vertical, going directly to where they cross, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my straight line down, my vertical line down. Now you're asking, what do I do with this stuff on the top? Because that doesn't look right. And you're right, it doesn't look right, because that's going to be the next side of the boxes. So where this point is, I'm going to go ahead, use my ruler, line it straight up with the edge, and go ahead and run it off the page. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go ahead, line my ruler up to the top. It goes right there. Same thing. I'm going to line my ruler up to the top. Make sure your line is right on. Boom. Done. So let me get this one done so it'll make more sense. All right, so here it actually runs off the page. So you're going to kind of have to eyeball it and do a little bit of judgment call. So I'm about at this angle, okay? The one below is at this angle. I don't know exactly, so I'm just going to make this, move it up to where my corner is. That looks about right. Then same thing, corner, corner, make sure I'm vertical. Once you get if you get off, you're gonna have a hard time getting it back onto the right score. So, got my top row of boxes. Here's the top of my boxes. Here's my row 2 of boxes. Here's the top row of my second row of boxes, and I'm gonna go ahead and finish putting this together, and then we're gonna go ahead and talk about paint mixing. Okay, we're almost done. I want to point something out. When you go ahead and go make this, you want to make almost like it looks like stairs. Like I would step on this platform, then I would lift and step on this platform, and then lift and step on this. So it should go diagonal, perfectly vertical. Diagonal, perfectly vertical. So there's almost like there's cubes. So going ahead and looking at this, I can see right here I need another line. So, because it doesn't have a cube. So I line up the corner with the corner below it and finish up my cube. So when you go ahead and have something that looks like this, again, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You see, I have eraser marks in places. That's okay. But I want to make sure that everybody understands you have to have, it's almost like it's a cube on top of another cube on top of another cube, all right, and so forth. So it's basically step up, diagonal, straight up, diagonal, straight up. This project I got from a wonderful lady from Paintbrush Rocket. She's the person who originally came up with this idea. So the hardest part was laying it out. Now comes the fun part where we're gonna go ahead and get it to paint.